What's up, Dream Team? I know it's been forever. It's been a really long time since I've been on. Been really busy with work. And I just feel like I keep coming up with all these excuses. I should really just make this a priority, but I don't know. Life's been pretty busy, which is good. So anyways, here are 100 push-ups. I'm gonna start making videos again, so I'm gonna get back on it again. All right. And it sucks, it sucks. It's not, how many times you fall. It's how many times you can get back up. Just like that. I get really busy, but I'll make sure to make the time, get things handled, make videos. If anyone knows Ghost Company, promote me or sponsor me actually. All right, let's bust 100 push-ups because I got tons of things to do today.
I made a tweet that had a lot of shares and like 600 plus replies to it. Everyone's dad or father figure had a few wise words they really wanted you to remember. My dad's top three were, whatever you do, be the best. They can never take away your education. And God gave you the power to ignore. Use it. And then I just asked my audience on Twitter, just 300,000-ish people, what were your dads? My team and I did.
So I did about 50 days of 100 push-ups straight, and I stopped for about, I'd say, I don't know, another 30 days. So it's kind of like starting from square one again. I should have at least kept the momentum with 50, 20, something. But anyways, here we are.
The 600 plus responses and tried to consolidate them into the 20 top ones that we thought were the most powerful and most universal, because in some ways it's almost like getting all of the consolidated wisdom of everyone's father all at once. For the three that my dad gave me, the first one was whatever you do, be the best. And this was something that I think my dad really pushed hard for me. And mind you, he pushed it very hard because he's like, why were you not the best? And I think that drove a lot of things into me. But just having that frame, now mind you, the best is tough because it means it forces you to always compare yourself to other people, which was a really hard frame for me to break for a long time. But what it did do was create somebody that always wanted to win. And I've tried to spend a lot of my life trying to redefine what winning means. But that was very deeply ingrained in who I was. He's like, be the best. And some people say that. And so I think a lot of the intention of how enforced is that from the parent kind of dictates to what degree you really learn that lesson. And so I remember for me, if I get home and I'd have a 99 on a test, he would never say congratulations. He would always be like, what'd you miss? That always continued to raise the bar, which from a success and achievement perspective was good. For me, it made me over time a little bit resentful. I've tried to undo that. Always asking the question, and if you've seen that scene in the Little Giants, I think? No, it's one scene where the kid does some sprint with some guy on his back or something like that, and he goes as far as he can, and he's like, is that your best? And then the kid goes a little further, he's like, is that your best? And the kid goes a little bit further, and he's like, is that your best? And the kid goes a little bit further, they keep going, and he's all the way past the end zone. And he's like, great. And so I think our best is usually significantly further than what we call our best. And that was just a very deep lesson for me, that there's just so much more gas in the tank for how much effort you can do when you want to get something, when you want to achieve something. And I think that was a big unlock that my dad helped me with. The second was they can never take away your education. Now, context here is that my dad's Iranian. He was born in Tehran. He was 18-ish when the revolution happened. So that was when the Western version of Iran got flipped by the religious extremists there. He fled the country. And so my family was loyal to the Shah back then. So he saw all of the wealth, the houses, the lands, things like that, just in a moment taken by the government. And my dad went to Europe, and then from there went to the United States, and he was a doctor. And so he came here not being able to speak English with $1,000 and built a really good life here in America. And I think in a lot of ways what he did is much harder than what I've done. You can understand why it was so deep for him that he was like, they can't take your education. He's like, no one can take that from you. No one can take it from a divorce. You can't get taxed. No government can steal it. Once you have it, it can't be taken. And so he was always so hard with education in terms of learning more, being better, that he drilled it into me because it was real for him. And I think a lot of people in the US talk about how important education is, but like he had that viscerally proven to him because everything he had was taken. And I think that for me that was transferred. The third one, and this is probably relatively evident, if I'm giving you these three pieces of advice, it probably deeply sinks to the things that you probably have found in terms of like essential threads in my content. But he said, God gave you the power to ignore, use it. Now, I'm not a huge believer in an almighty being, but I think you have the power to ignore, use it. For me, a lot of times I would be younger and I'd bring up things that were like thorns in my side, and he just never gave me empathy for that. And I don't say that in a bad way. I think he taught me an important lesson, which was that like, no one cares, so you shouldn't either. And I would complain about this thing and you'd be like, God gave you the power to ignore, use it. And he would just always, like, it was like his annoyed response to my like menial complaints about life, because he was like, this doesn't matter, right? Because he had seen, like, his context was like everything had been taken, his whole country had been turned over. Like, he's like, this is irrelevant, right? And so I think that was deeply embedded in me, where I just always asked myself, like, can I just ignore this? And a lot of times you can't. And I think that's just become a stronger and stronger muscle as I've gotten older and older. But those are kind of like the three essential pieces of advice that my dad gave to me. And so I'll take a second and give you some of the top highlights from the 600 that we collected from my audience. And I'll just make a quick little sound bites for you guys. Number one, fault and responsibility are not the same. Something may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. And I love this message because it's a message of personal accountability, right? Which is that we are masters of our own domain, and it gets people out of victimhood. And you can imagine how many times people are like, it wasn't my fault. It's like, it doesn't matter if it's your fault. It is your responsibility. You were supposed to clean your room. You were supposed to be here on time. Even if there was traffic, you should have planned ahead, right? And so it just teaches people to think ahead, be proactive. And I think that applies to work, relationships, health, whatever element of life you want to improve. Like, sure, there are outside circumstances, but saying that, like, it is my responsibility ultimately gives you the power. Two, my dad was a soccer player, and he said, if you try to be everywhere on the field, you won't be where you have to be. And so I think a lot of that comes down to prioritization and, to some degree, pleasing everyone, right? It's like, I'm trying to please everyone, be all things to all people, and then you're really nothing to no one. And so a lot of it is, like, sure, there's the business element of, like, skate where the puck is going to be, but being confident in picking the path and knowing that when there are forks in the road, there are going to be roads that have not been traveled that you will not be able to take. But that's part of making the decision. But most people sit at the fork and spend decades trying to make the decision rather than taking the fork and accepting the fact that they're not going to be everywhere. But if they're not everywhere, they'll also never be where they're supposed to be when the time's right. Embrace discomfort voluntarily, or life will choose your discomforts for you. I'm going to reframe this. Today, we have this kind of like mental masturbation culture around suffering because our lives are so easy that people are doing lots of things to like make life harder, which is why like Tough Mudders and all this stuff continue to proliferate because people's lives are so easy. But how you choose to perceive the discomfort is the power. Right? Like, if you imagine that this traffic that you're going through right now happens every single day for the rest of your life, you would probably not be bothered by it on the 100th or 1000th time that it happens. In some way, like, life chooses your discomfort for you, but really you choose your discomfort. And so I think that just having that frame when we're getting into any kind of difficult situation is the ultimate power, is that it sits inside of us to make the decision of what we deem hard and what we deem easy. Love this one. Leave things better than you found them. I feel like this is just one of those like great dadisms. Like, if you're gonna borrow someone's lawnmower, bring it back cleaner and better, better prepared or whatever than anyone else does. That's just like such a respect-driven lesson. My take on this is that, like, if you're gonna do someone a favor, go above and beyond, which is, I think, the like spirit of this, is that like anything worth doing is worth doing well. And so, like, if you're going to help a friend out, don't just half-ass help. Like, if you're gonna help a friend move, like, be better than anyone else could possibly be for helping the friend. If you're going to do build a free deck for someone, don't just be like, well, it was a free deck, and do a half-ass job because it was free. Make it better than if they had paid, or don't offer it at all. And so it's like, if you're going to do something for someone else, just make it far in excess of what they expect. And I think that element of going above and beyond starts to, people very quickly associate your identity with that kind of behavior. It's a very positive association from a respect perspective. 6, you can learn something from everyone. This is one of the great interpersonal skills of our time, which is like, I'm sure you can imagine some kids like, why should I be with that person? Or like, I don't want to talk to Ani, whatever, right? But the thing is that like, everyone is better than us at something. And I think the fun part is trying to figure out what that thing is that they're better than you at, and then learning from them. And so that is a frame that allows every conversation to be both meaningful and additive to you as a person, while also making you interested, which other people will perceive as interesting. And so if you're talking to anyone, simply trying to say, I wonder whether they're better than me and trying to learn from them is a great way to make lots of friends with lots of people and make life more interesting. The better you get, people you know will like you, and people you don't know will love you. And so it's interesting, this is a lot like Jesus was never Messiah in his hometown. You can imagine, independent of your religious beliefs, that there was somebody who many people believed to be living God on earth, but everyone from his hometown denied him. And I find that really interesting when it comes to entrepreneurs and success and driving forward in life, is that the people who knew you when you were your most flawed, earlier on in your life, after you've invested more time in yourself, will always try and anchor you to your old self, to older versions of yourself that you've developed beyond. And they'll try and say, like, you've changed, right? You're like, I hope so. Some people call that growth, right? But they will cast those stones as negative things. And I love this because it just gives you the expectation of what success will look like. And so I consider these requisites for success, in that if the people that you grew up with are not denying aspects of what you have accomplished, then it means you're not successful enough yet. And so rather than seeing it as a negative, seeing it as a check mark to know that you are getting closer to where you're trying to go. Some opportunities only exist within a certain time frame, so take advantage of them. This is the whole idea. I mean, there's a tweet that I did that went viral on this concept, which is just that, like, by the time you have all the information, the opportunity is closed. A lot of times you need to make decisions with imperfect information, and a lot of people want to make perfect decisions, and it's a fallacy of living life that makes life very hard if you wait for that, because you always will miss the boat. And so risk is a factor of life because none of us can predict the future, and being comfortable with risk, I think, is the essence of this, which I think is great fatherly advice, which is sometimes you just gotta shoot your shot. It's never eaten as hot as it's cooked. If you give things a bit of time, you'll see it clear without emotions. Yeah, the moment you get off the phone with the breakup, the moment you have some heated conversation, you're literally like, you're totally in fumes, you've got sky high emotions.
That's 100.
It's amazing how much clearer things can be with a single.
That's 100. I do it for you, I do it for me, I do it for we, the People Dream Team. Let's go.